November in Zimbabwe is a strange month. While on one hand it is a month of rain and of renewal, on the other hand, it is a month of political rebellion. Across Zimbabwe, November has always been mythical, almost spiritual, with major events culturally banned as the nation rests and takes a deep breath. But beyond the myths and the culture, there lies a strange reality. November has for over a century hailed new political seasons as the nation is born and reborn, as leaders fall and rise, and as the ground beneath the country shifts. November has often led to governmental shifts, with not a single election being held. November 1893 is probably the first recorded transitionary period for modern-day Zimbabwe. On the 4th of November 1893, smoke and gunpowder heralded the complete conquest of Zimbabwe. The British South Africa Company entered the ruins of modern-day Bulawayo and occupied the capital of an African kingdom. That day marked not just the fall of the kingdom, but it would be the beginning of colonial rule in a nation that would shortly come to be known as Southern Rhodesia. And from there, November chose its rhythm, heralding the endings of old governments and the beginnings of new victors. November 1965 heralded another political transition, again without the voice of the people. 76 years after the BSAC's conquest, on the 11th of November 1965, Rhodesian Prime Minister Ian Smith stood before the press before signing a document that would rattle the British Empire, the Unilateral Declaration of Independence. Acting with his fellows in the white minority-led government and with no consent from Britain, Ian Smith declared independence from Britain, the colonists establishing their own colony separate from the colonial power. The aim was simple: to preserve white minority rule, resisting British pressure to introduce majority black rule. Of course, London called it treasonous. Washington called it illegal, a colony being held at ransom. And with no recognition of Rhodesian independence, sanctions were placed by the UN, and the country entered a long isolated struggle, one that would last until independence in 1980. November had struck again, rebellion changing the trajectory of the country. And then, half a century later, November reckoned again, November 2017 this time. It started with rallies and tensions, with government employees being fired and with politicians fleeing the country. Then the world watched as army tanks rolled onto the otherwise peaceful streets of Harare. It wasn't a coup. Well, at least no one has ever officially called it a coup. But the sight of soldiers mingling and marching with Zimbabweans told the story words did not. And on the 21st of November 2017, after 37 years as Zimbabwe's president, revolutionary leader Robert Mugabe tendered his resignation. For many, it was liberation. For others, it was uncertainty as a new government took to the podium. But what was sure was that November had done it again, changing the nation's political landscape with no consent. So why November, you would ask? Maybe it's coincidence, or maybe it is something way deeper. Or better yet, as it is called Mwezi Wembudzi in Shona, the month of the goat, where the ancestors are at rest, the country becomes porous as leaders take the helm. From kingdoms to colonies, from declarations to departures, something happens in Zimbabwe in the month of November as power changes hands. My name is Rula, and this was this week, or rather this month, in Zimbabwe Untold. Let me know in the comments below if you think that this is all a coincidence or if something happens as the country awaits the rainy season. For now, goodbye and take care.